Okay, guys, so if you like this sort of content, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe for the sake of the algorithm and growing the channel. I big time appreciate it. Now, this is a video I made about 8 to 9 years ago, Truth About Tren Balone. So I had to be 20, 21, 22 years old. So I'm going to be honest, this video is extremely cringe for me to watch. Everything from my appearance to my voice to the way I sound. I just sound like a meathead. My beard is awful. Just my voice is so much deeper. That's from the trend. And it's just cringe. Like looking back, it's just freaking awful. But this video blew up initially. This was like one of the first big videos, maybe the first big video about trend when YouTube was newer as far as talking about it. Now it's like become a very popular thing to discuss. So I'm going to kind of go through some things. Now, some of the things I said and language I used, I don't necessarily agree with. So the first part of the video, basically, I talk about the side effects of Tren, how Tren increases your libido to a pretty drastic degree, and that is true. It makes it hard as far as productivity and things like that, as far as your focus. So it maybe sound cool to like, oh, my libido's higher, but it's really not fun. It's not like an enjoyable extent. Um, so that's one of the main things I noticed. And I also said in the beginning of the video, like Tren Ace is stronger than Tren Enanthate because the absorption rate is like 91% for Tren Ace as opposed to 75-ish, 73 to 75% for Tren Enanthate. So I always felt that Tren Ace was much stronger and was like the real Tren, whereas I didn't experience the same effects on Tren Enanthate. But basically, the first thing, libido. Let's get into the rest here and see what I have to say.
You need that. Tren will make you freaking aggressive, man. It'll make you a pit bull.
See, that is the most meathead thing I've ever heard in my life, and it's just so cringe. But like I said, we live with the past, and we have to make peace with it. So I'm gonna keep watching.
Like, when I'm bouncing, people always get pissed off. You take their fake ID or whatever, confiscate it, be like, fuck off, man, or something, always mouthing off to you. You get used to being verbally harassed and stuff, and you kind of just brush it off like, whatever, I'm not even going to deal with this dude. On Tren, man, I would snap like a motherfucker. Like, somebody would mouth off to me.
See, the profuse amount of cussing too is just cringe to another degree. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know this isn't the point of the video, but my goodness, it's hard to watch this. But this is true. Like Tren makes you very aggressive. Um, I've spoken with so many people. I always hear from some people on occasion who are like, yeah, I felt fine on it. It never did anything like that to me. I felt good. Like you do get those people, but I've spoken with way more who are like, Tren makes me freaking crazy and aggressive, and you get angry, fly off the handle at nothing, constantly irritable, things like that. So that is 100% true from my experiences, even at low doses, like 200 mgs a week, which isn't maybe not necessarily a low dose, but 200 milligrams a week is a reasonable dose, and it still brought that out. It's very hard to be in a relationship when you're on Trenbolone because the aggression, the the quick rise to anger, these sorts of things. It's pretty much the only steroid I ever felt actual roid rage on. So we often hear about roid rage, and I think it is somewhat overblown, but Trenbolone, it felt like it was a real thing. And I know, like, I could list so many people. Aaron Singerman talked about this before. Um, Leo from Leo and Longevity. A lot of people have talked about Larry Wheels. We talk about it in our interview coming up. How Tren is just something we can't mentally handle and is not good to be in relationships. So
It's like you're right in their face. Like, you're irritated all the time. Like, everything annoyed me. Like, if some.
that's true too. Like the irritability factor is, multiplied to the nth degree. Like you are very irritable all the time. Um, my favorite activity was truly just sitting in a quiet room by myself and like watching a movie. Socializing was very difficult. Being out in public was very difficult. So obviously, I'm more of an extreme example of what I felt on this, but this is legitimate. Like a lot of people feel this kind of stuff. So of course, we're gonna get the examples of like, no, I don't have that happen. I don't have the sides, but for the most part, a lot of this stuff is echoed by a lot of people.
Somebody freaking can destroy people. Like, if a person, I couldn't. You're ready to roll, man, and you feel like you can destroy people. Like, if anybody wanted to mess, good luck, because I'm gonna tear.
See, this is also cringe, but at the same time, there is a degree of feeling invincible in a sense. Maybe it was also partly due to youth, because like when you're 21, 22, sure, you feel more invincible. There was almost a reckless abandon to a degree of like, you're willing to put yourself in bad situations because you're not afraid. The fear is not there as much. Like normally I'm going to think twice about getting in a fight or something. When I was back in these days, I was working as a doorman. Um, but yeah, back then you just didn't think too much about your well-being. You were just more willing to put yourself in sketchy situations because you weren't as there wasn't that mental check where you're like, hey, maybe I should think about if this is a good idea or not or worth it. So that also is a thing. Let's fast forward
I
ahead
didn't
here.
give a shit about anybody else. I was so selfish. I didn't care about anybody. I was like,
So again here, like, you know, you do get much more self-oriented. Like there's a selfishness. You're not really looking at other people's best interest and you're kind of just 100% honed in on yourself. You forget about, basic feelings of like compassion and empathy because it's just like almost like you go on autopilot and it's like turning off your emotions in a sense. So your emotions are basically anger, frustration, irritability, and like aggression, and these are just the things you feel. You don't feel the other emotions, the full spectrum of things. You're just kind of cold all the time, like not literally cold, but cold emotionally and turned off.
everybody, I just hated it real fast or whatever. Once you start taking it, now that's not the
And that is true. Like I did have a general dislike for people in general on it.
categorize everybody into that, group. Some people do fine on Tren, and they have girlfriends, and everything's great and good for them.
The more I've seen with that, the less I believe it. I don't know too many people who have like good relationships on Tren. Sure, and there will be commenters who say I've been fine, I'm married, whatever. I understand that. Like I said, I have to really preface things with that. There are examples to the contrary, but it's not a good idea. It's like playing with fire. Like if you're in a relationship or trying to sustain a relationship, being on Tren is like playing with fire.
Them, I just don't think you should really risk it. If you really care about that person, do not. You and the thing is, you'll be cold to the point where you don't want to talk to anybody. You just want to be left alone. Like I just wanted everyone occur that I've all talked about so far. You'll get them at 350. You'll get them at 200. I mean, a gram. Who the fuck knows? But
See, the also this is why the amount of cussing in this video is overblown to the point it's try hard and cringy, and that's why I'm not playing a ton of this. I don't want to get the algorithm like get blocked or whatever from the cussing too much. But this video is awful. I'm not gonna lie. It got a lot of views, but this is the stuff I'm speaking about now is it's so much better as far as what I'm saying now. It's more eloquent, and you get the gist. So I'm trying to kind of like edit it.
some guys do go that high, believe it or not. It happens. Guys go up to a gram and a half a week. So you'll know right.
I have heard of people going up to a gram and a half back in the old school days before there was as much input about health and as much of a focus on that. There wasn't as much knowledge out there. I have heard of 1,500 milligrams a week of Trenace back in the day, which is literally a bottle and a half. It's crazy, right?
Right away whether or not it's real too, because Tren has this kind of rusty color. It's kind of an orangish, brownish, rust colored look. That's how it should look.
This is actually not true because Tren, if it's rusty and orange and burnt and like dark, it's burnt. So it's burned in the cooking process, and therefore it's not as bioavailable. It's not going to be as effective. So Tren should actually not be that dark. The lighter colored it is, the more real it is because it hasn't been burned in the cooking process. So the rusty color and all that you would hear about all the time, that actually means it's like burned and it's not going to be as effective. But you'll know if it's real or not because you're going to feel these side effects.
If it looks like gets into the muscle, you will all of a sudden you won't be able to breathe. Basically, your chest will lock up and you can't breathe, and then all of a sudden you'll start coughing, basically like you have bronchitis. It's such a violent cough that.
This is true as well. Tren cough, it doesn't happen. It didn't happen all the time. Maybe every couple of weeks I would get it once, and it would just be like you feel metallic in the back of your throat, and then you would start coughing violently and like almost be on your hands and knees coughing that violently and that loudly for about a minute or two, but it seems like longer. One of the ways I found out to curtail this was I would just like have a glass of water nearby and I would chug the glass of water as soon as I felt it coming on, and that would somewhat help stop it. Otherwise, there wasn't really anything you could do than just ride it out. But it was a thing that I felt, many times.
I would often be be on my knees about to puke. No occurrence on this shit. Just that's what happens all the time. Yeah, fun. So that's one thing to look out for. It also definitely raises your blood pressure. Everybody goes on, it's going to raise your blood.
See, the irony is I talked about blood pressure here. Did I do anything to help my blood pressure? Is no. I was 21, 22. I was like, I don't need to be on blood pressure medication even though I'm on Tren. Like, who knows what it was? My blood pressure was probably sky high for 10 years. And now I'm on like an ARB, telmisartan, 80 milligrams a day, even though I'm on nothing to kind of ensure everything's good. So it's just funny how I say that. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything. Who cares about health?
Blood pressure. Um, Definitely not good for your heart. Your kidneys, real bad on the kidneys. It strains your kidneys pretty hard. You will be. Sorry about that. My camera went. Basically, to recap, I think I've covered most of it. What you want to realize is this is to be taken very, very seriously. This is a huge decision to make before you embark on this.
Yeah, Tren is not your friend, guys. I mean, I do agree with that. Like, it's comes with so many side effects and so many health consequences as far as on blood work. Like, it's going to destroy your lipids. Your LDL is going to go sky high. HDL is going to be in the gutter. Um, your kidney functions are going to be all off because it is hard on the kidneys. A lot of guys pee darker. It stresses the kidneys more. That is a known fact. And Tren was originally designed to beef up cattle before slaughter. It was never approved for human use. It was never approved by the FDA, whereas like an Anavar was. An Anavar had a legitimate medical purpose, and some of these others do as well. Tren was literally never approved. It's just like equipoise in the sense equipoise is like a horse steroid that was never approved. Boldenone, the other name for it. Trenbolone used to be Finaplex, and they would make these pellets and make it up and inject it into cattle before they slaughter them because it would beef them up and there'd be more meat. So it was never approved, and it's got 5 times the anabolic and androgenic properties of testosterone, which you feel crazy strength on it, and you bulk up. It's not necessarily going to get you shredded. Everyone thinks it's going to lean you out. That's not the case if your diet isn't in check. Seriously, you could gain weight just as easily, which I did every time I took it, and my strength was at its peak on it. But there's better things that you can take with less side effects, like Anavar, that got me really strong as well. So it's tough to handle mentally. It's tough to handle physically. It's one of those things that you have to be really serious about. But this is kind of my retake on it. And let me know if you guys like this. So if you like this, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe for the sake of the algorithm. I'll keep the videos coming. Appreciate you guys.